I might start just answering to the previous question because I just thought about it now. I think there are two things there. You might be talking about sharing your code. Well, if that is your method, how you research results came by. But the other thing is you could also, in metadata, describe how something was sampled, what were the collection methods, and all kinds, all details about the methodology. And that is something that we at the FSD do for you. So it all helps to sort of start my presentation. And I have this data seal of approval today on the agenda, and I actually hope I wouldn't, because then I could talk about, it would say FSD and subject level data curation, for example. Because we do have services like Zenodo presented before, or EUDAT, but basically the main service at the FSD, the Finnish Social Science Data Archive, are the people who work for you there, because we do subject level curation, and we are sort of our services, you access our services basically through us. Definitely if you are depositing data, you can download data nowadays without seeing one of us, which is a great help for us actually. But I have something about data seal of approval, and that's sort of I try to tell how that ties with the open science that is on the agenda today. More in the workshop about the data archive, though. I said that already. I have plenty of text. I'm not going to read through them all, but in case slides are available later on, you may remember some of it. Also, before we talked about letting all services blossom, I think Damien said. We are one of those blossoming services. We've been around since 1999, serving social sciences community, basically. Just now we are opening up to the humanities, social sciences, health sciences, some of the medical sciences, not hardcore medical sciences, obviously, but more like if you have interviews and sort of more like something to do with human subjects in your research. And that is sort of a new approach for us and for the research community here in Finland. When I say in Finland, I come from Tampere. We are sort of a separate unit of Tampere University, but our service mission is to serve any researcher wherever in the world, and about 10%, 15% of our customers are actually coming from abroad. So we are not from Tampere University in that respect. Our key services, I already mentioned data curation, and I think that is one of the most important ones today. Obviously, data archiving, that's what repositories do. We take in data and we make sure it stays there. Obviously, that is a key service, but that is also something we could rather easily outsource and work with EUDAT on Zenodo or any CSC services here in Finland, for example. Then we have data dissemination for reuse, and in that respect, we have researchers, but also teachers and students as our customers. They are able to download data from our collections, use it for research, use it for learning purposes, teaching purposes. That all depends on the licenses. If the data is available, then you can use it. If it says only for research, well, obviously you can't download it for your teaching purposes. And then we obviously have plenty of information services, data management, plans, guidance, support in that area, various services. One of which is for anyone native in Finnish might appreciate is that we also translate your data And by saying that, that means if you have a questionnaire, you have your statistical data matrix. If it's requested from abroad, that could I see that excellent piece of work. It goes through our translation queue, and it comes out as an understandable data in English. Probably should mention that in Damien's slides, you could see CESSDA, which is European Research Infrastructure for Social Sciences. We are a national provider for CESSDA, so our services are part of CESSDA services. Currently, we have about 1,000 data sets, qualitative data sets. Most of these are microdata, and that also means that they are very small. If you think of terms of terabytes, we've never seen a terabyte. We might have seen a few gigabytes, but more megabytes are very familiar with us. So it's in that respect small, but requires a lot of work to make that reusable and understandable. On the qualitative side, we have interviews, narratives, images, videos, but basically the key part is there in surveys because that's what we started with. All our services that you would use are free of charge, both on the download side and ingest side. And we have an ILA service, you'll see that in a second, that we now use for data downloads. And we have open data, freely accessible, and then we have various levels of restrictions. But if we don't have closed data, so that's something you can't deposit with us. So if you say no one is never going to see this, then we'll say, well, we are not going to take that. If you say in 1 year's time I'm able to share it, then we can take that in. Just very quickly showing the ILA service where you can find it. You need to log in. If you have your HAC identification, that's all you need. If not, then you'll need to contact us and register, and that'll take a couple of days, and you'll have your ILA pass. Then, even before that, you can go and search for interesting data sets. Browsing, searching, that is available for everyone. You need to be able to access the internet, though. And then that's the key point because we are talking about social sciences, humanities, medical, health data. There are sensitive data, there are personal data in those data sets. So there are terms and conditions that you need to stick to. Restrictions may apply. There might be what you can do with data. Can you use it? I already mentioned, can you use it for teaching? Can you just do whatever with the data we have if you set it like that? But at least if you're doing research, then you shouldn't have problems accessing it. But before you download, you need to approve the terms and conditions. So now moving on to the data seal of approval, I'll rather quickly go through what the DSA is. In Finland, there are two repositories that are DSA certified, Kielipankki and our service. And that denotes a trusted repository, making sure that you as a customer, if you deposit your data with us, it will be stored in a reliable manner, and it will also be reusable and understandable for a long, long time. So it's a certificate, and it's rather easy to do. It's not very difficult. It's basically self-certification, and then you have a peer review, then you get your DSA seal or not. There are only 16 guidelines you need to fill. But what is important is that all these are rather crucial guidelines. If you're looking for a repository that doesn't have a DSA seal or can't show anything similar, then you might question, well, why? DSA at least answers to many basic questions and requires that you also have all the process documentation shown to you if you need that. So you need to document. Taking a step here, I can actually see what I wrote there. So why us? Because, well, that's what we do. DSA answers to our core tasks. It helps with our quality control, and it's a great way of building networks and trust with our customers, but also with funders, other partners, data consumers, like any certification basically would do. And it's becoming a requirement, at least in the CESDA environment. In a few years' time, data archives that are CESDA qualified, they will need to have a DSA seal. I should mention that a DSA seal is for in our seal is for 14 to 15. So after that, you have your seal, but it evolves. If in the future reserving DSA is something requires more, then you'll have to do your approval again. So it's an ongoing process. These are the 5 criteria. Not going to read them aloud, but if you do, you realize that actually they have something to do with open data. You need to find your data. It needs to be reliable. It needs to be there. You need to know your licenses. All these important bits. And one thing, we do the certification, but it involves the data producer. You need to produce a good quality data and metadata for us to work on. And it also talks about the data consumer who needs to responsibly use the data that they actually get from our archive. And our role, in addition to curating activities, discoverability, and stuff like that, is to make sure that our customers on both sides are able to commit to those guidelines that the DSA seal requires. So here we are sort of getting back to the open science. In heart of open science, you're talking about sharing. And in order to share data, you need to be documenting it properly so that people can actually understand what you've done. And without documentation, there's always a problem that your data may not be used because people can't understand it, or it might be misinterpreted somehow. And also certification, as I mentioned earlier, it comes down to documentation. I guess everyone who's received a DSA seal, they always talk about, well, the tricky part was writing so much documentation. We knew how we run the process, how we curate data, how we store it, but actually nobody had written down all the details, all the risk analysis, what happens if I'm hit by the bus and not do it tomorrow. So it's a documentation, accurate, open documentation. So how can we help you then? Well, drink responsibly, yes. I guess it's more like open responsibly. We offer guidance on taking reuse into consideration from scratch, guidance on data management, data protection, ethics, copyright, and then there's one big thing when you talk about human data, anonymization. Usually that is something that you can, as a researcher, do that, but it might be better to have someone who's sort of taking a neutral stand to do that for you. Make sure that it's done properly and there are no personal data issues in the data that you are opening up. So please open, but be as open as you can. Opening to see those there. because it might be that it's not possible to open without a reservation. There are regulations and laws you need to worry about, definitely when you talk about human subjects. Then the data might be in active use, so not everyone in your research group might be happy to share that right now to everyone, or especially that one guy from Jyväskylä who I really don't like. And they're restricting, in certain cases, might be the only way to share data that actually is sensitive or includes personal data. So finishing with this slide, open data at the FSD. So you probably gathered already that you don't get open data like many open data enthusiasts would think about just download machine-readable data. But all our metadata is in machine-readable format in DDI and DC EAD as a subject, so that you can actually harvest those. That already is rather rich source of information with all the variables and keywords, stuff like that described. And these services that are sort of funnily on top of my text there are already using the metadata resources we share openly. So it's in Finna, Sesta, and Thomson Reuters data citation index, for example. I guess that's about it before I got my thank you note. Questions?
Okay, thank you. Any quick comment or question? Stina is there already. But if you have any ideas, questions? No. Okay, shall we Oh.
Yeah, regarding DSA, have you considered any other certification mechanism or standard before choosing DSA?
Consider yes. Now, no. 2 reasons. DSA is suitable for us, and it's just about what we need at the moment. But then the other thing, if you go up on upper levels of sort of European scale of certification, the problem is that they are really much more detailed. And until now, it hasn't been possible actually to get an external audit done on those. So it would basically be a job for us to do as a self-assessment. And we don't get a fancy seal to put there. It would help us, yes, but it wouldn't be something that we can actually promote. So I guess we will go to the ISO standard 16363 in the future, but not now.
Thank you. And there's one question for you over there in Flinga, why there's few Finnish data sets in these repositories, although these services are free of charge for researchers?
Well, if you have an answer to that, I'd be happy to hear it. I guess one reason is, at least if you think our services, is that data archives in Finland, it has been the FSD for social sciences for the last 15 years, and only in a few recent years we've been getting other services for the other fields of science. And actually, the culture is now changing, so at least younger researchers are contacting us telling that, okay, I know that I need to deposit my data with you. How do I do that? Go back 10 years, that wasn't the case. Sharing open data, they weren't that well known. And we were sort of a nightmare for many researchers because we sort of we came after your data, even if you didn't think like I would share it. We were asking for it, making sure that you really, really want to do that, trying to pinpoint the important big data sets that would be really worth saving. So I don't have a good answer why, but at least the service is there.
Thank you.